recovery if you want to stay sober. My name's Vinny. I'm an alcoholic and an addict.
And I'm Sam, alcoholic and an addict.
And I'm going to kick it right over to Sam. His good friend is on today. Take it, Sam.
Great pleasure that I introduce, honestly, probably the whole reason I've developed professionally up until this point. From early on, when I first got a job in the behavioral health field, I was interviewed by this guy, Dave, and they almost didn't give me the job. Yeah.
Wow.
Because this other guy, Sean, who had no business working in our field, to be honest. But then I sat down with Dave, and he kind of like asked me a bunch of really bizarre questions and sat down.
He interviewed you?
Yeah, he did.
Oh, God.
My second interview, and he was like, yeah, you're going to be good. He was like, you'll be fine. Okay.
Nice.
And I had like no idea. It's funny, like you get sober, right? And then you're so compelled to like want to do more, to want to get involved.
Sure.
And
pay it back.
You get a job at an organization that's in a corporate building, in a business park with floors. There's human resources. There's this new thing I call quality assurance. And I worked in admissions for this guy, and I thought, he was wearing an Oxford shirt. Wow. I later learned that his Oxford shirt always like kind of fell out of his pants, and he always had like a Red Bull that was like half on his shirt because he works so quickly, and he keeps a lot of things up, and a lot of stuff's going on in his brain at all times. It's one thing you'll know about my good friend Dave here. But he changed my life. He changed my life. He taught me how to work hard and always remain compassionate and helping people, and I still carry that with me today. So it's with great pleasure that I introduce Dave Romero. Dave, how's it going?
All right, Dave.
It's going okay. It's glad to be here.
Nice.
So you just celebrated 16 years sober,
Yeah.
right? When was that, last week?
May 26th.
Very nice.
Yep.
Very nice.
Quietly celebrated 16 years sober.
Quietly, as you should.
Absolutely.
I did the same thing. So I guess it's funny, I've known you for almost 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know. I've known a lot that's happened in your life in the last 10 years. And obviously, being in recovery, we talk about little tidbits, but I don't really know your story like cover to cover. Like there's no chronological order to the events. So why don't you just take it back to the beginning for me and tell me about the saga of Dave?
Yeah, we can do that. You know what? You're not alone, though. I realized something that I'll talk about my past usually like in a one-on-one setting, but like socially, like especially in work, even though there's a lot of crossover there, I don't get into the history of like where I came from or how low or how bad it got for me.
You really don't, yeah.
And I never even realized I did that. I think I was actually thinking after you asked me, I was like, I don't know if Sam even knows my entire story of where I came from.
That's why we're here.
So,
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to start right in high school.
Cool.
It's Northeast Philly, middle-class family, went to George Washington High School. Some part of the greatest times of my life, and I was kind of like a shy kid, definitely introverted. I don't think we had a lot of the same diagnoses we have now for my kids, but I probably had them all, like attention, ADHD, high anxiety, maybe a slight bit of autism.
Just a touch.
Yeah, I was just a weird
The
social.
tism bumped into you.
Just a touch, yeah.
Definitely a touch of the tism. But just a socially awkward kid, and then I started finding this group of guys, and it started with weed and drinking in the woods, you know what I mean? And it was so funny because it was that lubricant that I needed, up until that point, I knew I was slightly different than everybody, and I was like, what am I missing? But as soon as I started drinking and then smoking, just that little bit of getting out of myself, it took me to the next level. Within, I want to say, 2 years in high school, I went from like the shy kid in 10th grade, like didn't talk to anybody, to by 12th grade, you know what I mean? I was running the bad kids in the school.
You were wild.
Yeah.
It was like, and it sounds weird, but like I always used to say this, like, smoking pot, and that's what it was. It was smoking pot, but we smoked like Adderall and took some Xannies in high school.
You smoked Adderall?
We were weird back then. Bro.
That's wild.
I've never heard of smoking Adderall.
I'm sorry.
Same.
I'm sorry. It wasn't. It was Ritalin. It was all of our prescription.
Yeah, that
Ritalin.
too.
Yeah,
I've never heard of
thing.
smoking it.
I never heard of anyone freebasing Ritalin.
Well, they teach it in Philly public school.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah, thank God. 12 years of Catholic school for me.
but it's kind of weird. Like that introduction to weed, it grew me into so many different like social circles, and I did. I felt like I was on top of the world. You know, I graduated, all the friends in the world. We had some really good times, and then just young, stupid, doing whatever I wanted. And it just kept going. You know what I mean? I want to say, like, from the party never stopped from the day I graduated high school until about 23. I'm going to fast forward. At 23 is when I go into treatment for the first time. But I think at that point I had drank every single day from high school.
Wow.
Whether it wasn't like, and it was a badge of honor. You know what I mean? It was the guys I grew up with. You know, we were drinking every single day. Some stuff comes in the play along the lines, but I don't know, somewhere around 1920, I realized like my drinking wasn't quite like everybody else's. And that's when there was just some little social cues, because it was the blackouts, it was the horrendous things. It was this is before social media. This is,
thank God.
yeah,
Right?
I can't even imagine.
Godspeed.
I
Yeah.
can't, some of the stuff I did, but that mortifying waking up and people calling you and telling you what you did. You know what I mean? Just out of pocket stuff. I remember one New Year's, it was 2000. That was Y2K. We had the Y2K stash in the garage. My dad probably still has it to this day because the world was gonna.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
of
your
course.
dad had like, I don't remember.
Everything was going to end.
Well, the Y2K stash is, I think it's now the COVID stash. It's still in his garage, but
It's still there. What? Like, you mean like Windex and like canned beans and
it was
stuff?
like canned food,
Yeah.
Right.
evaporated milk, bottles of water.
Stuff that'll stay good for like 35 years.
Stuff that would go in a bunker if we could
Right.
afford to build a bunker.
Yeah, but I remember that New Year's Eve. That was a big party, and big party. So I'm 19 going. I'm 20 going on 21. I'm at my friends, my best friend Tony's house. We fight all the time. We fist fight each other. I've been arrested. I don't know, at that point from high school to 21, I think I had 23 drunken disorderly charges.
From Philly cops, nonetheless.
Philly, Bucks, just
I
throughout,
mean,
like,
usually Philly will give you
Philly cops just
kind
tell
of
you
a
to
break as
should
long as
tell
you
to
leave.
knock it off.
I
Yeah.
probably got away with more stuff.
Oh, yeah,
you know
I'm
what
sure.
I mean? Than I didn't. But I do remember that New Year's, I stripped naked and chased my friend's aunt throughout the house. And then
Oh, my God.
they're telling me the next day, and I'm like, now I'm in an apartment, and I think that was the first time I actually had alcohol poisoning. I remember it was like a hallway and a bathroom, and I was still trying to hang out with everybody, so I had my head out in the hallway, like this is New Year's Day, and I was puking violently and like deathly ill. And that
Jeez.
just the blackouts kept happening, and like my inability to stop drinking was pretty evident. I knew it, and it started being like where it was like all control things, man. Like I remember we went to this place called General Grant's, only bar in Northeast Philly that didn't flag me. They flagged me from karaoke, but I wasn't. But I was still allowed to drink there, and like this is probably 21, 22, and I always think back to this. Because I was going to the bartender, it was Postman Eddie, and I'd get a draft of, every other draft I would get Coors Cutter. And I was like trying to figure out a way to drink and not become a mess. And he looked at me dead in the eye. It's like halfway through the night. He's like, Dave, I applaud the effort. He's like, but even if I'm giving, you're getting a shot of Southern every time you come up here.
Right. It's offsetting that non-alcoholic beer.
But that played with me. It kind of played with me like even after the fact, like I was always able to look at it kind of analytically, like, why am I trying to control something, but then also saying this isn't out of control? Like just the fact that I'm trying to control it shows it's out of control.
Stinking thinking.
Yeah.
You know what's so funny is I kind of went. I've never even really talked about this, but I, coming from the bar industry, used to just love drinking Jägermeister. But like, dude, I've busted my face open due to Jägermeister, and I remember thinking one day, like, I'm just not gonna drink Jägermeister anymore. And I
Yeah,
was
it's
like,
got to be the Jaeger.
dude, you're a genius, bro.
Right.
Just switch to Irish whiskey. You'll be fine.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that was like, and then I'd like look myself in the mirror and be like, you got this. You know what I mean? After like that
Wink at
genius
yourself.
revelation, like,
Right.
like, yeah, I'll just drop the Jaeger. To be honest, it's kind of childish anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're
Yeah.
22 now, dude.
Got
Time
this
to
figured
buck
out.
up and drink John Powers instead.
That was a tequila. It was always the tequila's fault that I got in trouble. So it was like, this is simple. I won't drink tequila. I'll drink
Yeah.
Southern Comfort. I won't drink. There was something called Firewater. It was like a cinnamon schnapps. Like,
Yeah, like isn't that Fireball?
it was before Fireball.
Oh,
So this
okay,
is just a
okay.
pure schnapps. It was just
Oh
it
my
was
God.
liquid Big Red gum. If you're chewing Big
Wow.
Red gum to this day, there's something so deep rooted in my brain that I will
Really?
get violently nauseous.
Damn.
And I think it stewed from like we were taking acid and I drank an entire bottle to the head.
Yeah.
And the last thing I remember is like we were driving down Medford Road on the roofs of cars. My dad came pick me up to take me to a computer show the next day from my friend Dan's house.
That's
I was
great.
so sick, like walking around Bucks Community
I had the
College.
same experience with SoCo with Southern Comfort. Like if I smell Southern Comfort now, I think I drank like a fifth of Southern Comfort in like 3 hours once. I'll get violently ill now at 9 years sober.
I
Like, if
haven't
smell
seen Southern Comfort in such a long time.
long time,
I mean,
same. And I don't
didn't even
want
know
it.
they still made it.
They definitely still make it.
Wow.
They
Yeah.
do still make it.
Yeah.
I mean,
probably-
I'm sure.
It's probably in a plastic bottle now.
Yeah.
yeah.
I was out
Plastic
with
jug.
Yeah.
my fiance drinks, and I was out with her, like her sorority sisters, and I made them all drink a shot of it with lime, like kind of like,
Ew,
and,
dude.
and they almost puked, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this is
Oh
the
my
greatest
God.
thing ever.
Because it's gross. If I smell it, like I'll gag. It's because I had such a bad.
But you know what was weird about those years? There was still some fun. You know
Of
what I mean?
course,
Like,
yeah, there was
and
like
that
an
was the
allure to
illusion.
that.
Like it was like I had the best friends in the world. We could do anything together. You know, we were out every night. I had that sense of belonging. And the sense of belonging with those friends even overtook my family, like my family dynamic. Like I started, obviously, I'm fighting with my family because I'm like coming home and I'm sleeping under the table. I'm naked. It's a vinyl floor. I peed myself. There's a
Oh,
puddle.
God.
And it almost became like the normalcy.
Wow.
And it went on for years like that. And it became more and more painful, but only like the blackouts and the embarrassment of what I did. And is that like kind of when like the years of trying to control it. Like I can vividly remember sitting in Morel Tavern going after there. I worked at a deli where, I was selling whatever we were allowed to drink there all day. And I'd go down to the bar after. And I remember like washing my hands in the bathroom, like 3 beers, Dave, and get out of here. And there was just never there. I think I was flagged from that bar 3 times before I was 21, 2 times after, and then still never allowed back after 22. But that's not what took it. Like what actually took me over the edge was Percocets came around.
Really? Yeah.
The
of course.
Percocets came around.
You would think alcohol didn't take you over an edge, but it really did.
What was weird,
looking back.
it was weird and it was sneaky because I realized, I'm already a morning drinker, I want to say at 22, 23. I'm working dead-end jobs. I think I'd been in college. I don't even know how many years. I'm at college at that point. I'm like in community college. Then I'm down at Temple, just pretty much wasting everybody's money. And just things are going on. And the Percocets come in. And I realize I can eat 5 of these Perc 10s in the morning and I don't have to drink. And I feel great. I can go work in the deli and I can grind. It was insane, the strength it gave me. I'm carrying 6 beer flats up these wooden steps and just working like an absolute animal. That addiction kept getting worse and worse. And then it became Dilaudid that I was buying off of this biker. And then it was Oxy 80s are coming out. And it was sneaky. It was sneaky because I caught the physical habit really quick. But what it did was I was able to maintain it because it wasn't costing me a ton of money. I had a burst of energy. And the weird thing is everybody in my life thought I was doing better. Because it curbed my drinking. Everybody was always so concerned about Davis, just wild with the drinking. I'm still drinking pretty much every day, but it's now down to like I can go home and drink 4 or 5 beers, or I can go to the bar and drink 3 or 4 beers and then go home. So it kind of looked good on paper. Everybody's like, man, he's really pulling it together. He's growing up. He's maturing. He's no longer a weaker. Meanwhile, I'm just habit after habit is just building. And then I think it was the summer of 23 that just all fell apart. I'm with this girl, and I always say smoking crack saved my life.
My God.
And people think I'm like I'm laughing, but
Right.
I met this girl, and I don't know. She did stuff for money, and it was a very weird relationship that we had. I met her on an AOL chat room
Classic.
one night, and I remember like talking to her. I don't remember her name, and then she's like, I told her, I was like, I'm looking for coke, and she's like, I love coke, and next thing I know, I'm over her house. She lives a couple neighborhoods, and me and her went on these binges that were just ridiculous because she had an endless supply of money, and I had Well, I had nothing else to do. I mean,
that's true.
A crippling habit.
I could party, and she could supply, and I had all the connections to get the stuff that we needed. And it was weird too. Like she come over the house, and my parents are down the shore, and I'm telling my sisters not to come home. I'm locking them out of their own house, or
Right.
and I'm just moving in the shadows everywhere. And I can remember one night on a binge with her, where like I'm snorting the coke most of the time, and she's smoking it, and I remember looking at her and thinking, I think this is like day 2 or day 3, and thinking like, I think I got to go to the hospital. Something's wrong with my chest, and I was having like I couldn't breathe, and I clearly remember it was the next day that I'm looking back on this memory, and I'm remembered. I looked over, and there was probably like a 1/4 ounce of coke sitting on my parents' of all places dining room table, and I remember looking at it and saying, you know what, I'll go when that's over. But the next day, that actual thought fucked with me. Like, it fucked with me hard, because I was like, holy shit, I thought I was dying, and I chose to stick around and do the extra coke. I mean, I never made it to the hospital. That was the first time I said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. And I went to my family. I was 23 years old. Like, I'm shortening it up that there's so much chaos. There's so much arrests,
course.
DUIs, just bullshit that you would expect.
Well, up at that point, did they know you were using like opiates?
No, they knew, at this point they know something else is going on other than the drink, and they know I do coke, but they know it's getting worse, and they had no idea about opiates at that point.
Right.
And
They knew about the cocaine though, right?
they just knew. My dad had that, and it's that self-preservation. Like, he's a weekend warrior, he's going to pull it together. And I think my mom was a little more concerned, but she comes, openly, she comes from, this is rooted in her family. My grandfather died with, several years sober, not through any type of program, but he died. He did the church. Some of the cooler moments of my life is he saw me sober, and we talked about how he got sober, and I was heavily rooted in AA, and he did it through church. It wasn't as popular when he got sober, but some of the similarities into what we had to do to get sober were so profound.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, it's almost absolutely.
I remember it was actually my college graduation. I'm sober at, and he's reaching into the cooler and grabbing a beer. He was grabbing it from my grandmom. I said, "Hey, you can't have that." He said, "I can have it. I don't want it." And it was like like a weird statement, but it was profound, because he can't have it. He didn't want it. That's that psyche change where he didn't need it. He didn't want to have that drink. So it was, went to my parents. I got the greatest family ever. Like, I can say they gave me every opportunity anybody could ask for, and all the support I could need. They took me immediately up there. I don't want to say the name of it's a local facility in Ben Salem,
Gotcha.
PA, and I'm scared. I'll be honest. I'm actually scared at this point, and I remember, like, my mom could see it on me. And I remember her saying, like, look, they all look like you, because she could see him smoking. And I remember my exact words: I'm not hanging out with those junkies.
Right.
You know what I mean? And there's still this self-ego that I'm better than. And I don't even know where that came from. I think it's just...
I said it too when I went to treatment. I said, I'm not like these people. You're exactly like those people, except you don't smoke. You didn't smoke.
It's funny is I remember like going to treatment for the first time and be like, finally, like I'm with my own kind of people.
Well, it does.
You
I
felt
felt
at
that
home.
instantly.
This is at a mission. I'll tell you kind of a funny part of that is this is at the point where everybody is going to Florida for treatment. Every uni guy is going down to Florida. So I'm in this place, and the 8 guys that were in detox before me all get shipped off.
Really?
They're going, they're packing bags. The airport's coming to get them.
About that.
So they're asking me like, "Hey, do you want to go to rehab?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." I call my mom like, "Hey, I'm gonna need a beach towel. I'm gonna need some sunblock,
Shorts, right.
They bring me over, but apparently my insurance didn't cover that. They take me to the other side. I'm like, "Well, cancel that. I'm not gonna need all that. Can you bring me some smokes?" But I was so disappointed. But I'm in there, and I'm feeling physically better, because at this point, and you got to remember, this was an awful detox.
What year was that? What day did you go in?
July 26, 2003.
Cool.
26th or 23rd, but it's right there. I'm 23 years old, but I've lived a tough 23 years, and detox was awful. Like, at this point, I think I had literally drank every single day since I graduated college. It might have been smaller amounts. So there's some physical withdrawal there.
Oh, yeah.
There's a vicious opiate habit. And I even remember like just having no clue. I think rehab or work had sent me to rehab prior to that. I worked in a produce department at Superfresh.
Mm-hmm.
But, well, it was funny because they sent me to an outpatient place when I was like 19. And the lady flat out called me. She's like, you got all, I know her. I don't think she's no longer with us, but she looked at me and she's like, I can't tell you anything that's going to make me believe you, but you have every single characteristic, and I'll see you in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And it was almost 5 years later, and she was deadly. She was
100%
deadly right.
right.
But you're 18, you're 19.
You know, it's so funny, not to redirect yours, but I went to an adolescent program in an area that I wasn't from. Like I went to you know where.
Yeah.
With Patty Ann, and she pulled me aside after my first group. She said, "Hey, I need to tell you something." I said, "What?" She says, "You're like a real drug addict." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She was like, "None of these kids." She was like, "A lot of these kids just got in trouble at home, and their parents sent them here. Like all this stuff we talk about, like you're gonna die, like that's you. Like you are the real deal, Holyfield. Like you have every characteristic of a sick and suffering alcoholic and drug addict." And I was like, yeah, isn't that why I'm here? And she was like, yeah, but like, I don't think you understand.
Right.
Like I was 15, you know what I mean? I was young. And she was like, she grabbed me by my shoulders. She was like, if you don't figure this out now, like maybe you will later in life, but the likelihood that you're going to die is pretty high, dude. And I was like, okay. And that was in 1 year out the other, right? Of
course.
Just like it was for you.
But you remember it all these years later.
Dude, I
don't
remember
you?
it now. Like, and I went back there when I eventually went to go get sober. She scholarshiped me when I was 23.
That's so cool. It's weird because we're in that position now, and I don't want to get too far into, but I can see people, and I can see it in them, and way before they can. And I'm not going to label nobody. I'm not going to tell them, but it's there, and it's so obvious in some people.
Oh, you mean like the character defects that come to that fear and that self-centeredness and false sense of ego and like weird dishonesty?
Yep. Just that the
all that stuff, yeah.
Manipulation.
The ism, dude. Like you can just smell it a mile away. It's terrifying.
Well, I had no idea of any of it. And then, so I'm in Livingston that time, and I'm still kind of like on the fence. I feel great physically. I haven't not done drugs in this long. And this guy comes in and he speaks from an outside meeting. He's from the same neighborhood, you know, dresses the same as me, talks the same as me. And he said something about spiritual bankruptcy. Didn't define it. I almost fell over in my chair.
But you knew you had it.
I did. You know what I mean? And that was the definition of what I had been like on them nights where I was the last one up, and I'm like, I just done something really stupid, and I'm looking at this guy like, what is wrong with me? Like he defined it in them 2 words, and he didn't even define it. I knew what he meant. And I swear it was from that moment I was like, whoa, you know, like there's something going on here that's a little bigger than me just partying too much.
Sure.
I stayed sober out of there. I stayed
did
sober.
For how long? Well, I mean, for how long?
Almost 3 years.
Really? Okay.
Oh, really?
You know, and
I mean, it gave you a little bit of a foundation for the future anyway.
It did. And, you know, like I always say, like, I don't know if it's because I'm old now or if it's because
older. You're not
I've
old.
lived so many different lives. I feel like I have lived multiple different like lives. They're different chapters of the same book. But
Couldn't agree more.
I don't know how. Maybe it's because I'm older, but I think it has more to do because my life hasn't been like a continuous progression. It's been stop, rebuild, destroy, stop, rebuild, destroy, new. You know what I mean? And
Learn a little bit along the way.
I think I've probably forgotten more than I remember, but I do remember spiritual bankruptcy. I came out of there, and to the outside world, that was when I went in AA's Golden Child. I didn't do any work. I showed up.
You were Mr. AA?
Mr. AA.
You were one of those guys?
And you know what? Everything came back. You know what I mean? I was able to excel. I got a job. Right back to the supermarkets, $12 an hour immediately. Within 6 months, I'm promoted. I'm running I'm assistant director of a supermarket, which,
cool.
You know, at
23, that's pretty
24,
good. Yeah.
you know, it's a real job.
That's a good job.
Yeah.
Even in today's world, being a director
they
of a
make
supermarket,
so, I mean,
they make big money.
It's a nightmare, but it was just weird to me. Like, and this is where it gets tricky because everybody's like, "Oh my God, Dave's a different person." But the reality is I never changed anything. I stopped drinking. And
All
doing
you were
drugs.
was dry.
Yeah,
You know, no drugs, no alcohol.
yeah. And I mean, I'm going to meetings, I'm talking the talk, but the reality is was I really looking at myself? Was I doing a 10-step? Was I looking at like what part I played in this? Was I even helping other people? Would I pick up a phone? Yeah. Would I go to a meeting and talk to a newcomer, which I kind of think is a lost art nowadays, but we can get into that. I also came into, that was like the heyday. I don't know. I feel like AA was a little bit different back then.
100%.
Like I walked in.
Imagine what it was when I got sober in 1986. It was way different.
Like closer or?
It was just a tighter community. I felt like, like I belonged there, and it was like family. It was like an outside family kind of a thing, and it was good.
Yeah,
it was good.
It was. It was able to replace that bond I had with that group of friends who, don't get me wrong, I'm still friends with that initial group of friends. Some of them aren't doing so great. Some of them are doing great, but they'll always be my friends. My drinking wasn't their problem. They weren't the problem. I was the problem.
Sure.
But it replaced that for me, and it gave me but it's still, so the fellowship, the meetings I'm doing, I get a job, I excel in that, I meet a girl, have a baby, we get a house, and everything's just happening. I get a truck.
Good stuff.
I had a legal driving license, which I
That's great.
hadn't had in years.
Yeah.
And to the outside world, it's all going good. I think it was 9 days. So my daughter's born January 21st.
You got a lot of dates of birth.
2007? Wow. That's because it makes her 18. I'd been sober up to that point, and I don't know what happened. It was a combination of everything people say. Like, the meetings became a little less important. Work became overwhelming, maybe overwhelmed as a dad, and opportunity and obsession. Is that what they say?
Yep.
Some pills come home with the pregnancy. Prior to that, I don't know when the relapse actually was, but prior to that, I was prescribed some cough syrup with codeine syrup.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, I should probably be aware of this. 1 sip, 2 sip, drank the whole bottle.
Yep.
It was right before the baby was born.
How about that?
And it sounds weird because that's like a little buzz, but you know what? It was enough to just have that little itch of man, this feels great.
It got you going again.
And then it was matched by a couple of pills coming home with the baby.
Yeah, from the pregnancy, sure.
It was right then. And how awful is that? I think it says it in the big book. You can put all this effort into one major event and all this good work, and then boom, blow it at the last minute.
Yep.
Oh, for sure.
Well, I did. You know what I mean? I built this life up. I met this girl. I impregnated her, and I welcomed my first child into the world, and I relapsed. And when I say it got bad, I turned into, and I'll feel guilty for this for the rest of my life, because this girl met me. I was sober. She had heard stories about how I was, but she had no idea the person I was when I was using. And to make things worse, I was 100 times worse than when I got sober the first time. And that led to 3 years of just straight hell.
You were out there for 3 years?
Yeah, because I got sober in 2009, so roughly 2.5 years.
2.5, sure.
And that's where all the AA, and I realized how much I didn't know. And a lot of this stuff came in retrospect, because I remember there was a part of me that thought I was sober 3 years. I'm going to fuck up a little bit. I'm going to pick a date. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to do it again.
Yeah.
The world had other plans,
Yep.
And that's Oxy 80s are out right then.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 2009 you're talking?
That was like
2007, 2008.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, you're right.
And that's
when they were big.
I mean, it comes back, and it comes back tenfold. And it's the same thing. It's the same story we all had. That goes from, 40s and chewing them to snorting them to, the high nevers. Now I'm in Kensington with a needle in my arm.
Yeah.
I'm calling the guy, calling a guy that I know that uses intravenously, and telling him hey, walk me through how to do this. And then it's a year and a half of Kensington every single day.
Wow.
All the time.
Everything's for sale. I'm a degenerate at this point. I'm getting arrested. I'm shoplifting. I don't know when my family figured it out. They knew, though. They knew relatively quick. I hit it maybe 6 months, 6 to 9 months. The job goes. I think the job put me in rehab. And it was weird because
They tried.
They tried. They put me in rehab maybe once or twice, and I couldn't get it. I couldn't get that. I don't know what it is, like that little bit of spark to just get over that obsession. And it's weird how I could sit here with 16 years and it's hard to remember that obsession, but once you're in it, man. Like I remember it.
Nothing else matters.
And it follows you like a shadow too. You may not remember what it feels like now, but one little slip up and it follows you like a shadow. It'll attack you.
Yep, and it did. I mean, it just took me to the ugliest places, you know. And that's funny because when I don't want to say I was a high bottom the first time, but there was a lot more. I could have got a lot worse, and I did, and it happened quickly. And now at this point, now we talked about it before. Like, did my family know? At this point, they're just terrified because they know it's.
They know you were hanging out in Kensington.
They know it's
shooting
heroin.
it.
They know it's IV.
You must have looked a lot different too.
A lot. I mean, by the end of it, I had Hep C so bad. I remember one time copping, and my eyes were so yellow that the Puerto Rican kid on the corner actually was like, "You sure? Like you should seek medical attention."
Even the dealer was telling you. My
yeah,
God.
that's we all like have that story.
In the
where,
worst drug neighborhood in the world, the dealer was telling you should go get that checked out.
Dude, I had a guy one time, I was like literally trying to give him something that was like, I forget, I stole something from my parents' house and I went to give it to him. He was like, bro, is that your mom's? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, just keep it, man. You can just have it. Like, go put that back, dude. And I was just kind of like, wow. Like, it was crazy. You know what I mean? Like, I forget about, like, that's insane, you know?
The amount of chaos in them 3 years. I don't even know how I survived it. Like, I mean, I got beat in the head down there I was burning the corners with counterfeit $100 bills.
Oh, wow.
Figuring out. I jumped out of a second-story window on that first street off to the right off of Somerset because I think they figured out that I burnt one of the other corners, and they told me, like, hey, we're going to bring it around, wait upstairs. And then I realized the door was locked.
Yeah, you weren't getting out.
Just wildness. I got beat in the head the one time they put me in the hospital. It's the night before Christmas Eve. And this is crazy. Like, they put me up in the room where your brain's bleeding. Like, they wouldn't let me leave.
Oh, wow.
But you know what happened? The unemployment hit at 2:00 in the morning. So
What hit? I'm sorry.
Unemployment check.
Oh.
2:00 in the morning.
Oh, you were good then.
Gone. Right back down. And it's the night before Christmas Eve. And it's just, I knew, like, I was so far in it. And the whole thing was just ugly, and it just was getting uglier and uglier and uglier. And I was getting arrested more, and I have no job. I don't think I worked for a year and a half. This has happened to be around the stimulus time where, not stimulus, this is when Obama kept extending. Unemployment. I swear,
unemployment was extended.
I swear I collected unemployment for 2.5 years. I don't know. It was ridiculous, and it almost killed me.
Stimulus.
And I don't know what happened, man. I'll tell you I could tell you a million war stories, but I could tell you the most profound moment of that is so I had another kid. I had Bryce. In the midst
While
of
you were using?
In the midst of an awful heroin addiction, I welcomed my second son into the world.
Were you still living with your?
Yeah, we're starting to get the whole. We're getting evicted. You know what I mean? We were kicked out of her family's house. Then we had an apartment that I had to give up. We had to go get another house.
Her family owned it?
Her family owned it. And I don't remember if he was selling it or whatever, but it wasn't the greatest terms. And then we got moved to a smaller apartment, and then we were moving out of there. I had sold my truck. I sold my truck in Kensington for heroin. It just got so crazy, like. But then we got kicked out of that apartment. I got us a little house in Mayfair that we were renting, and that was like it was ungodly. It was not.
How were you getting houses like a house in Mayfair without a job?
She's working.
Oh, okay.
She's working, and I'm a talker, man.
Gotcha.
I feel like one of my poisons is I could talk anybody into anything.
Cool.
And I don't know.
It's a gift and a curse.
It's definitely a gift. It's great for a call center.
Yeah.
And that's actually going back to that interview. I was like, oh, this kid's got it.
Yeah.
But it was bad, and I don't want to harp on it much longer. But I do remember. We all know what addiction's like. I'm not eating. The kids aren't being taken care of like they are. I'm doing stuff, I'm able to get like coverage for my daughter and my son, to this day, I probably always have a soft spot. because this thing's that kid, like he's 1 to 9 months. He gets sober. I get sober when he's 9 months. But the places that kid was for them first 9 months.
Oh, you would actually bring your kid. Ooh.
And like I don't admit that, and
I know.
I'm admitting it on a public forum right now, and you know, if people want to judge me, they can.
It was also 17 years ago, and that's what addicts do.
Well,
they do crazy shit like that.
The only reason I'm bringing it up is just maybe there's somebody listening out there, and you know they're beating themselves up, and you know the point is he also has never seen me drink or drug since he's been 9 months.
That's right.
Yeah.
And he won't remember any of that.
And the greatest pain in life, like I know we say we can't get sober for our kids, and that's 100% correct. But I remember very clearly sitting on the couch, and the two kids are playing there, and it's one of them times, like one of them rare moments where you're really thinking about how destroyed everything is right now. And the thought came to my head, they're better off without me. That's not what scared me, because
They probably were kind of better off without
the
you.
part that scared me is there was the other side of my brain that fucking knew it was true. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I was like,
Yeah.
holy shit.
That's sad.
I've never thought that since I've gotten sober.
Good for you.
But at that moment, you know, and that's what happened. I went back to treatment, and I skipped probably, I don't even know how many, you know, 2-day detoxes or how many times I ran AMA or, you know, wound up back in Kensington. And you know, I didn't actually get treated. I started the process of going into treatment, and I think I was in like 6 over a month and a half. I'm homeless. I'm sleeping in a Eden Park in Northeast Philly. I think the last time I went to my mom for help, she left it was a MapQuest directions to get to the Salvation Army, 2 tokens, and this little like. I might be not remembering this correctly, but I swear it was a Cabbage Patch blanket.
Oh my God.
Which I don't. And then I slept in the park. You know what I mean? And I was going Life or Death. I don't know if any of you guys know Life or
I know
Death in
Life or
Philly.
Death.
That's you know, it was where I got sober the first time. It changed, it moved, but I'm like hanging out there, and during the day I'm still using. But it's slowing down. It's slowing down, and then there's like a 2 or 3 day period where I couldn't physically get up and just do the hustle that I needed to do to go back down to Kensington.
Sure.
So a guy named Juan brings me in. He brought me in to get me. He brings me into the prep house. I've been asking him for a month, and he walk up to me, look at me, look me dead in the eyes, and I know what he was looking for. He's looking if I'm pinned. He'd be like, "No, sir, not today."
Right.
Because he spoke in this little Spanish accent. Finally, he lets me in. I think because he could see me actually, like I'm withdrawing. So like he knows I'm not using. I'm 3-4 days into it.
Yeah, sure.
And this is
You
where
can see that from a mile away.
and I'm sleeping in the park at this point, and he lets me in. And this is another like distorted thinking type thing. I remember I get there. I'm sleeping outside for quite a bit now, and I'm running. First thing I do is complain about I don't have any money or anything. I'm like I think one flip flop, a half a t-shirt, and a pair of shorts, and I'm complaining about the bed being lumpy downstairs. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Just that
Yeah.
immediate like these aren't things I noticed then, but I don't know what happened. But that group of guys in that prep house was put there by some other higher power because it was just enough to get me like through that first.
Yeah,
30
it was the right
days.
mix.
And so I'm at Life or Death, not Life or Death, Stones. They kick you out of the prep house every day. You're not allowed to sit there from 9 to 3, so you just go over to Stones and we smoke cigarettes.
Just run the meetings. to
Smoke
Stones,
cigarettes. I
yeah.
think I'm still collecting unemployment at this point. And I did meetings, man, and like I did a lot of walking. I couldn't sleep because there was no detox. I remember walking this loop, and it's probably about 4 miles. I would do it two times each night, trying to just physically make myself pass out because
Right.
like that lack of sleep is crazy for the brain.
Yo, dude, it's insane.
Yeah, like complete. I mean, almost hallucinating, just walking around
I've
Mayfair.
hallucinated from
Where
not
were you?
sleeping
Where were you
before.
walking? Around Northeast Philly?
Yeah, right down State Road, all the way down to Rawn, past the prisons,
Gotcha.
up Rawn Street to Frankfurt Avenue, all the way back down to Princeton, then back down to State. And I was just
got you.
looping
Right,
it.
right.
There was a cool moment, like I think it was maybe a weekend, a weekend, and I get another paycheck, and I get another unemployment check, and I walk up to the boulevard. You could get on the C, I think it's the C, I don't remember now, and go down, or the other way would take me out to Ben Salem to this place that I used to always steal stuff, and I'd sell it there, and I wanted to go up there and get an iPod, but I made the right choice. I mean, I probably should have sent money, you know, or started digging my way out or paid rent, But I went and got that iPod. I swear to God, that iPod saved my life.
It was still the decision that you didn't go the other way and spend it on drugs.
That's
Well,
so
You bought an
funny.
iPod.
Bought an iPod.
I
With
didn't
every dollar he had.
Right.
I didn't have a computer, so I couldn't put any more music on there. There was like 13 songs on there.
Oh my
It
God.
was like somebody else's iPod.
Oh yeah, it was
What
a
were the
stolen
songs?
iPod. The one is the game. Game. What's it? My Life by Game.
By the game. Okay.
Which he's talking about, and there's a lyric in there. He's like, I needed my father, but he needed a needle. And
Yeah.
I guess his dad overdosed. But I remember, you want to talk about spiritual experiences. I'm just walking around hallucinating, like not
Listening to
sleeping,
the Game.
crying,
Right.
listening to rap, like gangster rap music. Which there's still a couple songs on there that are still in my my go-to list. Gangster rap. I had a spiritual experience, but
For sure.
but it was cool. It was a cool time. Like, and them songs just taking me out of that thought to just get up and go.
Music will do that to you.
And from there, it was, a new life was built. You know what I mean? It started humble there. I got kicked out of there. I'm a rule breaker.
Juan kicked you out?
Juan did kick me
Wow.
out. I think I tried to fight him.
What'd you do? I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
No. You know
There
what
was
I
a
did?
reason behind
Well,
it.
it gets funny, and this is actually where, remember I told you I was in 3 years of the program and never like worked a program. So about 90 days, I helped one of the guys detox, and we take him up to Friends Hospital, and we're out all night, 3 o'clock, trying to find this guy a detox bed.
And you're clean like 3 months now? Roughly, you said?
I want to say 60 days.
Oh, 60,
maybe
okay.
30, 60 days,
Cool.
right in that range somewhere. I think it was coming up on 60 days. And we take the guy to detox. And you know what? And I wanted to argue with it. I broke curfew. He was pissed. He came in. Maybe there were some ways about how he was talking to me. I still have it to this day. One of my character defects is if you attack me, I'm going to attack back. Like, I don't,
Sure.
I'm getting better at it. But, the reality is he was right. I broke the rule. But in my head, I was like, I broke the rule because I'm trying to help
Yeah.
somebody. That's what I'm supposed
Right.
to be doing. I'm taking him to detox.
Right.
So I remember sitting in the Stones. He boots me, and I'm sitting in the Stones in that 11 o'clock meeting or whatever it is, 10 o'clock meeting. And I put my hand up, and I remember saying, "Hey, you know what? I did the right thing. I have complete faith that I'll end up where I got to be. I'll find a place to sleep. Which I'm actually terrified, but I have this thing where I
course.
want to play cool for everybody else.
Yeah, of course.
And a guy gets me into a bed at Keystone House, which is a block and a half away. It just happened to open up. That's more of a step down house at this
Yeah.
point. And I'm like, I walk in, there's no rules. It's beautiful. It's big. I got a bigger bed. It's nice. The guys all seem cool. I'm like, yeah, right where I'm supposed to be. That night I realized I'm in a big book house. There were a bunch of Brennanites. And do you guys remember?
Of course.
Like, kind of the big
I
book.
just saw Brennan.
The big,
They were all Brennanites back then.
Oh yeah, but this is at the height of like where it was almost like two.
When he had the Holy Family meeting,
Yeah.
and they would
Well,
all
that's
just
where
go
we
up
went.
there.
So
yeah.
and
Brennanites.
yeah. So and I probably at that point had kind of skewed more towards the old timers, like just don't drink, kid. You're going to be all right, because that's how I got them 3 years. And I just discounted them because for no other reason than I wanted to jump on the discounting. So I'll tell you what. I stayed there for I want to say another year and a half, and I was forced to go to them big book meetings. But guess what? I actually learned
You
about.
got sober for real, you mean?
I learned that in them 3 years, I never did any work on myself. I had no idea really what them steps
Oh,
were.
yeah.
Supposed to
Oh, you never
expose.
worked the
Oh,
steps
yeah.
the first time
Well,
around. Not fully.
not in earnest.
Right,
And I
gotcha.
just had a complete lack of understanding of what I was supposed to be doing.
I feel like the first time you sit down and you're like, go to write your fourth, you're like, man, every meeting I've ever been to was a waste.
Yep.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You do. You're like, I've been stealing people's time and attention up until this moment, you know?
It pointed me to the obvious choice that I didn't want to deal with. That the problem wasn't anything else but me,
Right.
and I was the thing that needed to be fixed. And that's kind of, and it was a wild ride. I will say this though, I might have, so I had faith that I'd get where I needed to do. I got there. I quickly realized I was the only sober person in the house too.
Where at Keystone?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh, yeah.
But
That too.
we worked on it, and I made some bonds there, and the ownership was great. I'm still friends with those guys today. You know what I
Cool.
mean? And I started chipping away. I started working. I started putting in floors. Something I'd never done. Hard labor? No. Like I've never been a labor guy.
Right.
And I learned to trade. And, we started working. I chipped away. We got
What were you doing?
flooring.
Oh, flooring.
Hardwood
Cool.
flooring and carpet. Not well, but I was doing it. You know what I mean? I was getting
Not
up.
well.
I was getting up. I was doing it. I was going to see the kids like when I can. She's at her mom's house at this point with the babies, and we're meeting up wherever we can. And it took forever to save the money up. Let's get another apartment. So I bought we rented an apartment right across the street from my mom's house. Or I could see into my mom's front door from my living room, and she could see me, which seemed like a good idea at the time. I still don't have a license, and stuff like that, and we slowly started building a life. I was doing the floors for a while, and chipped away at it, man. I just grinded. I had like $6,000 just in electrical bills to think about renting an apartment. And they weren't really favorable for like any type of payment arrangement. But I did it. We put the work in, and we got that apartment and reunited with the kids. Exactly where I should be. And that's actually when eventually I get burnt working working in flooring, or I start doing my own side work, and somebody didn't pay me, and I didn't have any money, you know what I mean? It was devastating. And then that's me. I'm never working for somebody else. I'm never trusting my future and I start applying for every job. But you know what? I have a criminal background. Yeah, I have a college degree, which I managed to get that first time sober. It was funny. I didn't mention that. I had been in school forever. I got sober. I graduated a semester later. I was always so close. I just never could do it. And then that's how I wound up in the. As we know, I work in this industry now, and I answered an ad in a paper that I had 0 qualifications, and there was a small asterisk at the bottom. And it said, knowledge of drugs and alcohol plus.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, I'm doing it.
And that made you super qualified.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And and then I started doing what I do, and I've loved it. My dad told me all my life, find something you like to do and get somebody to pay you to do it. I honestly can say, you have bad days at work, but I haven't woken up in the last 13 years. I love the work I do. I try to pass it on. It's definitely not my program.
You don't dread going to work, that's for sure.
No.
Well, you've done a really good job becoming a leader. You breed winners. People don't know that about you, but I know that about you. There are several individuals out there that work in this space that were given the blueprint by a good guy, and they're all very successful because of that. And not, you know what? Now maybe I shouldn't say this, but I don't think all of them realize that. But from my experience, those early days were electric, man. And they don't. It seems from my opinion, they don't make them like that anymore. You know what I mean? They don't train that anymore. Dave can tell you some stories about me. Yeah. I made some serious mistakes. Yeah, I
Join
made
the
some
club.
serious serious mistakes that should have gotten me fired and probably red flagged.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, I had a kid go into a center, and that kid removed a shower rod from a bathroom and beat on Atlantic City cops. Yeah. You want to know why, then?
Why?
You want to know why? Because when I was doing his assessment, he said, "What happens if I fight?" I looked at his address, Wayne, Pennsylvania. I was like, "You're not going to fight."
Right.
He fought. He sure fought.
So when I remember the kid's name. I remember every detail about it.
Too.
I will say this. I read that intake the next day, and there's no way in hell I would have sent that kid.
Yeah, of course.
And I will send everybody. But I was also the nursing station called me at 2:30 in the morning from the facility, and it sounded like Lebanon.
Oh my God. You were in Beirut. And he was what, destroying the place?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Also, I don't want to. We're jumping away because me and Sam worked together much later, and I did have something called the per DR report that I built into Salesforce, and it was my way of seeing what Sam put my name on.
Yeah.
Because he would say per DR.
I would be like, per Dave.
Scholarship,
Dave.
$18,000. Like, what are you doing, bud?
I would do wild stuff.
Per DR.
But you know what?
Yeah.
Nah, man, you guys all worked so hard, and the
We
only
worked
thing,
so
the only
hard,
thing I
dude.
just try to remember, remind people is we're fortunate, man. We all work in a space where we're just helping people.
Absolutely.
And I love, you know what I mean? I loved it. And that's kind of when my career started taking off. I slowly worked myself up. We worked out of that apartment. Then we moved into a family home. And it's weird because I had 4 more children.
What are you
since
up to now? Like 11
I'm,
at this point?
I'm sitting at like a 6.2.
Yeah.
There's still some pending DNA test out there.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'm just kidding.
I know.
I'm just kidding. Like, and it hasn't been easy, but I will say this. So I want to go back to like, I got to that place and I started actually working a program. I started trying to acknowledge like, and I think that's like the coolest thing about like people that get ingrained in the 12-step culture is we have that ability to like look internally. Like, and I was talking to some kids about this the other day. They're, newer in recovery. Like, not everybody gets that. Like, I go through life, and if me and Sam get in a fight, I don't like harbor on he's a dick. What's wrong with him? Almost naturally, my first thought is, what did I do?
Yeah.
What did I do in this situation, man? And imagine how cool life would be if everybody operated in that space. And I'm not good at it, and I don't do it 100% of the time. But without the programs, Alcoholics Anonymous, I would have never done it. You know what I mean?
No way. Would have never stared in the mirror.
So like it grew and I started helping guys. I dove right back into it, and AA was a huge part of my life. I will say this, like I've kind of like distanced myself recently, and I go on waves, like where I get back into it and
Distance yourself from what?
making the meetings
okay.
as consistently as I know I should. I'm a better person when I do, and it's weird because like no matter what meeting I go into today, there's still something I hear, and I'm like, fuck, man. Like, you know what I mean?
I'll hate a meeting too for like 45 minutes. I'll be like, this isn't real Alcoholics Anonymous. And then someone will get their hand up and I'll be like, oh,
Exactly what you needed to hear.
thank you. You
Right.
know?
Yeah. So like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I've tried to live my life by those principles and teach other people like in the program, like, hey, it's not just, it really, like I can't emphasize enough. It's not just not drinking. And that goes back to them 3 years. Like, and that's the weird, like tricky part of our disease is you could take the drugs away and we tend to be smart, successful people. So you can get stuff real quick. And we tend to think of that stuff as success.
Right.
And it's not.
It'll get you jammed up just as bad.
I always say sobriety is a state of mind. You know what I mean? If you have that state of mind, then you're sober. It's not just being alcohol free, drug free, whatever. You have to have that state of mind. And like when we're out there running around or like not going to meetings, are you sober or are you just like drug and alcohol free? Because I say that all the time. This August, I'll have 39 years in the program. Was I sober for the whole time? No, because I stopped going to meetings and then I went back. And so I was clean. I wasn't doing drugs. I wasn't doing alcohol, anything like that. But I always say like sobriety is a state of mind. And I didn't have the state of mind the whole time from 1986 to now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I could say it, but like I have gone through some really tough times. Like you fast forward to, like I guess I'll jump into it. Like, everything was kind of like cruising along. Like, and then some relationship stuff came up. I wound up, separating, which, like it's weird because
That's hard to do with a family. I can't imagine.
It was, and like it upset family. And I stood by this commitment that like, if I didn't, like my kids weren't going to see like their full dad. And that's the reality of it. It's like, we could put it a million different ways. Everything was being so draining. Everything was getting so draining that the kids didn't get to see the dad that I knew that they needed. And like, now they get to see a healthy relationship. And like, there's a part of me that like went through a lot of those years, like this is what I'm supposed to do. Like, hey, hey, I did this. I'm in it. I can't leave it. And like, there's some validity to that, but it can be devastating too. The opposite can be,
Sure.
Like if
It
kids
can do way more harm than good.
yeah, but like, there's those values that were ingrained in me, but it's caused an absolute. So fast forward to everything's great for 12 years, and then my life's in shambles. You know what I mean? Like not shambles, but like, and weathering that sober's been kind of difficult. Like, like
You have a whole community to lean on though,
Correct.
too.
Yeah.
If you're an active
and I have
guy.
like there's, like I still have I mean, almost everybody I know is in some type of program. Like,
Yeah.
it's weird because you talk about like different lives. I've been doing this since I was 23. Almost everybody I've met after in my life at 23 is sober or in some type of recovery, or the people that I tend to be closest to.
Right.
So I relied on them. I relied on them all through that, and it's still going on. You know, some days I feel better about it. Some days I feel worse. But like, I think the neatest thing that happened is the way I look at a drink or a drug today. Like, it's not the solution. Like, and that's like, and I don't want it. Like, I think that's the psyche change that's happened for me is it's not appealing anymore. Like, I even remember like getting sober, early sobriety. Like, you talk about the past and like, there's still a little bit of glorification. Like, I'm talking about those days.
Yeah.
But like, even when I first got sober from just devastating heroin runs, I'm still talking about Kensington like it's Tahiti. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it is this state of mind of
Buddy,
euphoria.
You almost kind of forget. You know what I mean? It's almost like behind you so much now that like you don't. Not that I forget, but like I have not had a craving for a drink and a drug in so long that I almost don't remember what it's like. You know?
Well, you know what?
And that's
I mean,
dangerous.
Well,
too.
it's
Dangerous game.
To be honest with you, you know, looking back on you calling Kensington Tahiti, and our brains tend to think of only the positive when it's in the past.
Yep.
Think of some
we
rat
always remember
bastard
the
that
good.
dies.
Yeah.
You go to the funeral, and all you can think of is all the good stuff, not the fact that if he was still alive, you'd, you know, it's not. And I don't want to say that. I don't want to misstate anything, but in the like, I could recall stories that are hilarious that are about my past, but they weren't at the time. But now I could glorify it a little bit because you tend to remember all the good and fun you had, not all the times that you were put in handcuffs in the backseat of a cop car.
Yep. No, and you're going to go through active withdrawal. But I was talking, like, even just that immediately after, my brain was still glorifying it. I don't know that it glorifies the Kensington, like, and that's the thing. Like, I see it for the truth now. Like, if I go down to Kensington, I still go down. I'll be honest. There's random nights I drive around and I kind of look for people that I know, or like to see if I can help anywhere. Like, sometimes I'll give out sandwiches. Sometimes I go with the nonprofit. Sometimes I just drive down. And this isn't like let's see what's happening.
Yeah,
like,
right.
And it has never looked anything but what it is: death, urine, and just desperation of like of the utmost, like of the. There's not a part of that's appealing, you know. Like there's not a part of that, like of a drink that's appealing. And like going back to my pop-up, simple statement: I can have that. I don't want that,
right?
You know, and that's how it's been for me. I think that's like the magic of the program and working those steps. You know, it could have changed. It could have changed on an instant, but that's where it comes back to. Not so much talking about the program, living a program. Sure. You know what I mean? I've tried to maintain my integrity. I'm definitely, you know, I make the biggest mistakes ever, but like when I do them, I try to learn from them, and I try not to do them, and I try not to hurt people, and I try to, you know, I just try to leave a positive impact on the world, like to oversimplify like my recovery, and I haven't. There's been a few times. You haven't had any cravings?
Not in a really, really long time. There has never been a time.
I don't remember my last craving.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there is never. Sometimes when it gets warm out and the weather changes and there's a little bit more humidity in the air, there is a hair on my body that's like, you know, I can get like glimpses of like, buddy, I would walk. Dude, I've walked from 65th Street to 10th and Dolphin. You know what I mean? Like, I've walked 10 miles easily, no problem. You know what I mean? And like, I'll get or if I go through Rittenhouse Park, Square Park in the summer, like I used to hang out there really late at night and do wild stuff. I'll get glimpses of it, but it's not really like a craving. I almost have like emotional.
I got like
flashbacks.
I know what you mean, because I remember this one time my wife had the kids somewhere. It was a Saturday, and I went down. There's like a beer distributor, liquor store around the corner from here, and I just wanted to get some soda, like because they have soda. I wanted to get 12-pack of soda, so I walk in there, and just for the hell of it, I walk by the beer case. There's music playing in the back. It's Saturday night.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I got this adrenaline rush come over me because music is big to me.
Yeah.
And so was beer. And so, but that moment right then and there, I said, oh my God, like I almost lost my breath. Then I said, whew, okay, I grabbed my 12 pack of soda and I paid and I left. But it was that split second of a feeling. And that was probably about 20 plus years ago or whatever,
It's just like,
but it was a feeling.
It's like an emotional, it's like a flashback almost.
Yeah,
you know what I
basically
mean?
like a flashback.
But I haven't ever bid on myself saying like, you know what, I think I could.
Yeah, I never,
smoke a
that
bowl
never
or
even
have a beer. I've
flashes
never
into
done
my
that.
head.
I haven't done that in the last 9 years.
Well, I think a lot of times too, like a lot of the guys that got sober with me or in that opiate era, it's just they always think I can drink, and that's a blessing that I knew I couldn't drink before the opiates.
Oh, I went from opiates to drinking.
Okay.
Yeah.
So well, I can see that.
And that was the worst thing that ever happened to me.
I could definitely see that. It's because that's how I tried to cure my heroin addiction with shooting cocaine.
I left Philly and I never touched an opiate again. My girlfriend in high school died and I became a bartender. I mean, I also smoked a lot of crack cocaine. So like that coupled really well with the alcohol.
Sure.
I couldn't have one without the other, but like alcohol brought me to my knees harder than M-Box ever did. You know what I mean? Ever.
Do you ever get one of the moments where it's like the only two times I could think like it wasn't even a craving, it was like I got in really bad emotional fights with people I'm very close to, and there was almost this quick instant "fuck you, I'll show you."
Oh wow!
I know.
Out of spite?
It's twice. It's happened twice. I'll show
Really?
you. I didn't do it.
Right,
But like
sure, sure.
that scared me, and that also showed me like that's that emotional. That's that you just talked about it.
Yeah.
That's being sober, or what did you call it?
Being clean.
Yeah.
And, alcohol, drug free, but not having that state of mind of sobriety.
Well, that's like the accumulation of not having the state of mind of sobriety.
Exactly.
That happened twice, and that's where the program comes in because I instantly like, whoa, what's going on here? You know what I mean? I'm going to throw all this away.
You catch
to
yourself.
spite somebody.
Yeah. No, you catch yourself. Hopefully.
Yeah.
But
it proved to me like I got to keep this regulated. You know what I mean? And that's
Sure.
kind of like
that's what happens when you leave the program for a little while. And it's like you get into get into a fight, whatever. Your brain kind of forgets what you learned.
Yep.
That's why we have to keep going back and continue learning.
Yeah, I recently brought back prayer. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Not that I stopped doing it completely,
Right,
but
right.
as a daily, because it keeps me. It's that.
That's the first thing I thank God for every day, sobriety, because without that,
none of it.
You literally have zero. So you have to you got to be thankful for your sobriety first and foremost, and everything else will be granted to you that you or will be maintained anyway.
1,000%.
Yeah.
That's what I look at anyway.
Couldn't agree more.
So listen, man, that was in a very, very cool hour.
I like that a lot. Dude.
That was
You did
I
great,
really, really want to thank you for coming on. Enjoyed the hell out of your story. Come back and see us again sometime. Any parting words?
No, just honestly, if anybody's listening, and don't think they could do this, it's there for you. Just follow direction and watch the people that are doing it and live it, and just be careful of those landmines of trading commercial or success as sobriety, because they're not the same, and the work's all on us. And good luck to you.
Two different things.
They're too drastically, and it's so easy to get them confused.
Yep. Words of wisdom, brother. Appreciate that.
Appreciate you, buddy.
Well, this has been Tenacious Recovery Podcast. Again, you got to be tenacious about your recovery if you want to stay sober. My name is Vinny. I'm an alcoholic and an addict.
And I'm Sam, alcoholic and an addict.
Dave, alcoholic and addict.
My man, Dave. We appreciate you being here. And God willing, we'll see everybody soon.